Unbelievable twist. Poor girl's acts of kindness lead to a billionaire's shocking revelation. In a sleepy little town where nothing ever happened, life took a strange turn one humid Thursday afternoon. The stillness was abruptly broken by a shrill scream echoing from the alley behind the diner. It wasn't just the locals chasing their gossip over pie and coffee. This scream carried the weight of something curious, maybe even sinister. Rumors started swirling like the dark clouds above, as if the very air buzzed with anticipation. What had come over their quiet little community? Enter Emily, a girl with frizzy hair and a heart of gold. She was known for her random acts of kindness, feeding stray cats, helping elderly neighbors with groceries, never asking for anything in return. But today, she found herself standing in that alley, heart pounding, her hands trembling at the sight before her. It wasn't just a cat this time. A shivering puppy lay on the damp ground, its fur matted and eyes wide with fear. The way Emily bent down, every line of her face filled with determination, was like watching a hero ready to face the wind. But she was just a girl, with nothing but the urge to help. As she approached, the puppy darted back, whimpering, and just then, another shadow appeared, a tall figure cloaked in dark, expensive fabric. He gave off a vibe like no one Emily had ever met, an aura of mystery that made her heart race. His polished shoes clicked on the pavement, contrasting sharply with the dirt and grime surrounding them. The deep-set eyes of the stranger locked onto hers, and silence hovered between them, thick and electric. "You don't want to get involved with this," he warned, a dangerous softness in his tone that sent a shiver up her spine. A crowd began forming, whispers bouncing around like a pinball machine, raising the tension. "I heard he's a billionaire," one voice exclaimed. "Why would he care about a stray dog?" Another chimed in. Someone in the back scoffed. "What's a rich guy doing here, anyway?" The atmosphere grew charged, pregnant with curiosity and doubt. Emily could feel the heat in her cheeks as everyone watched, scrutinizing her choice, standing firm while the world screamed out. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a deep breath, Emily extended her hand toward the puppy, locked eyes with the stranger, and felt an unsettling thrill course through her. Would he help? Or was there something darker hidden beneath that polished exterior? He reluctantly knelt beside her, his presence towering, yet something flickered in his gaze. Was it fear? Or was it the glimmer of admiration for her courage? As the crowd leaned in, every person's breath held tight. She heard the stranger whisper, "This moment could change everything." And with that, a deeper mystery emerged, one that was far beyond a simple act of kindness. What secrets waited just beneath the surface of their lives? Emily's heart raced as she sensed a shift in the air, the crowd's anticipation thickening like fog around her. She glimpsed the puppy, still quivering, and she could feel its desperation echoing her own. This was more than just a lost dog. It felt like a dark omen perched on the edge of something far more profound. The stranger hesitated, eyes darting between the puppy, the onlookers, and Emily. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek flip phone, its screen glinting ominously in the alley shadows. "This is not a safe place for you," he murmured, his voice low and urgent, but the weight of his words hung in the thickening air. "Why? Why wouldn't it be safe?" Emily demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of irritation and fear. The crowd murmured again, their intrigue blending with unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was spiraling beyond her grasp. "Because there are things you don't understand." He tapped something on the screen, his focus unwavering on her. Was he about to call someone? Or was he a part of something much more sinister? The tension in the alley was palpable, a moment stretched like elastic, ready to snap. Suddenly, the screech of tires interrupted the scene, and a sleek black car pulled up, tearing through the quiet like a knife. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a woman with striking features and an expression that could chill the hottest day. Her eyes flicked to the stranger, then to Emily, her expression as cold as steel. "Get in, Mark. Now." The stranger stiffened. Mark? Was that his name? Emily's heart sank as she realized she was caught in something that felt all too real. The danger pulsating around her intensified, and for a moment, she thought of retreating, running away with the puppy. But that impulse was swallowed by a fierce determination. She couldn't abandon the small creature. Not now. Not when it was relying on her. "Please," she said, dropping her voice to a pleading whisper as she locked eyes with Mark again. "Help me." Mark hesitated, the woman's sharp gaze boring into him, something unspoken passing between them. The crowd was losing patience, the murmurs growing louder, fueled by escalating curiosity and fear. People were starting to inch towards the alley, as if drawn by an invisible thread of tension. "Emily, listen to me." Mark's expression softened, just for a moment, and in that flicker of vulnerability, she saw more than just a billionaire. She saw a man trapped by his choices. "Leave his place. You're in danger." "No," she insisted, fear flaring in her chest. "Not until you help this puppy." Just then, the puppy whined, and its tiny paws pattered towards Emily, as if sensing her resolve. Mark's eyes widened slightly. "You're willing to risk it all for that dog?" Her answer was unwavering. "Yes, because I want to turn my back on anything that needs help." "Not now." The tension wound tighter, and suddenly, Mark made his decision. "All right, but we need to move fast." He scooped up the trembling puppy and handed it to her. But before she could take a step, the driver of the black car leaned out, her voice like ice. "You have no idea what is about to happen. Get in with him or stay here and regret it," she warned, her eyes darting between them, uncertain yet powerful. Emily's mind raced, caught between her instinct to protect the innocent and the smoldering mystery that surrounded the stranger. What truths lay hidden beneath the surface? What consequences awaited if she chose to stay? In that heart-pounding moment, Emily realized she was standing at a crossroads, and the choice she made next could propel her into a world she had never imagined, a world filled with danger, secrets, and possibly her true destiny. Mark reached out, coaxing her towards a car. She felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Would she enter the unknown, or dare to confront whatever dark forces were closing in? What would her heart ultimately decide? The air crackled with tension as Emily stood frozen, the weight of the decision heavy in her chest. She could hear the puppy whimper softly, its small body trembling against her hands. The cold, calculated gaze of the woman in the car drove a chill down her spine. "Get in, or the nightmare begins," she reiterated, her voice a sharp knife through the increasing noise around them. "Emily, please," Mark urged, his eyes pleading. "They don't just want the puppy, they want you too. It's not just a dog, it's everything." What did he mean by everything? The words twisted in her mind, but the urgency in his tone locked her body in place. A flurry of thoughts whirled through her head. She glanced down at the puppy, its brown eyes filled with fear yet trust. This moment wasn't just about her anymore. There was an innocent life depending on her bravery. "I can't abandon it," she finally said, steeling herself. "Whatever happens, I'm not leaving it behind." Seconds passed like hours. The crowd had grown restless, their murmurs morphing into whispers of bewilderment and concern that spiraled around her. She could sense their gazes, some sympathetic, others filled with judgment. Just then, the car's engine roared to life, slicing through the ominous silence. "Mark!" the woman shouted, her voice now tinged with irritation. "This isn't a game. They could be onto us. We have to go." "Do you really think it's safe to draw attention to ourselves?" Mark replied, his voice barely above a whisper but charged with urgency. Emily caught a flicker of fear in his eyes, a rare glimpse beneath the stoic facade of the man before her. "Who are you?" she demanded, the fire in her chest scorching away her fear. "What the hell is going on? Just get in," Mark replied, exasperation clear in his voice. But deep down, Emily felt a dangerous allure. What truths would she uncover if she stepped into that car? What was at stake? The puppy nudged her hand, and her resolve began to form like steel. If sensing her indecision, the crowd shifted. Suddenly, two figures emerged from the shadows at the far end of the alley. They were cloaked, faces hidden beneath hoods, their intentions as dark as the night itself. Emily's breath hitched. Her instincts screamed danger, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Mark," she gasped. "We need to move now." Mark turned, following her gaze, and his expression dimmed. "They've found us," he whispered, the realization hitting him like a thunderbolt. He grabbed Emily's arm, his grip fierce but desperate. "Get in," he commanded, eyes darting back to the encroaching figures. The woman in the car peered at Mark, a subtle tension coursing between them, as if they were playing a precarious game of trust with stakes far higher than Emily could comprehend. Without fully understanding how, she made her decision. Gripping the puppy tightly, she ran towards the car, adrenaline pushing her forward. As they reached the vehicle, she felt a powerful rush. This choice would either save her or plunge her deeper into peril. Before she could process what was happening, they were inside the car, Mark shutting the door behind them just as a sickening sound sliced through the alley glass, shattering. Emily's heart dropped as she turned. The cloaked figures had arrived, their sinister silhouettes illuminated beneath the streetlights. "Drive," Mark yelled to the driver, and the car surged forward, but not before Emily caught a glimpse of a gleaming object being pulled from one of the figures' cloaks, a weapon. Terror blazed in her eyes as she grasped the puppy closer, heart pounding in her ears. What had she done? Who were they? She gasped, seeking Mark's eyes, desperate for answers. The weight of unspoken truths bore down on them all. "They're looking for something, and it's more dangerous than you can imagine," he replied, his voice grave. Before she could ask another question, the car jerked violently as tires screeched against the pavement, and everything outside became a blur. A small whimper escaped her lips. What would this new chapter of her life hold? And did she truly understand the depths of danger now entwined with her fate? But one thing was certain. She would not surrender without a fight as the city faded in the distance. Emily felt the undeniable grip of fate pulling her deeper into the chaos. What lay ahead? And would they survive the reckoning that was now closing in? The car jolted as it sped through the dimly lit streets, the world outside a swirling blur of lights and shadows. Emily gripped the puppy tightly, her heart racing. Too much was happening too fast. She shot a look at Mark, who was staring straight ahead, his face a mask of determination and dread. "What do you mean dangerous?" Emily pressed, her voice trembling as she struggled to keep up with the urgency of the moment. "What exactly are they looking for?" Mark's jaw clenched, and he remained silent for a heartbeat, one that felt like an eternity. The driver, a man with an expression as unreadable as a stone wall, focused on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They're coming after something they think. I have something I can't let them get their hands on," Mark finally said, his voice a strained whisper. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, scanning for any sign of pursuit. "What could they possibly want from you?" Emily's mind raced through possibilities, different scenarios flashing across her thoughts. He could be a criminal, an informant, or worse, a target. "They think I'm the key to a secret, a very dangerous secret," he muttered, almost to himself. "I tried to help people, but it went wrong." The weight of those words sank into Emily like a lead anchor. "Mark, what kind of secret?" Just then, the sound of a siren pierced the air, splitting the tense silence. The driver cursed under his breath, hitting the gas even harder. Emily's pulse quickened. The night was unraveling before her, with shadows closing in fast. From the corner of her eye, she noticed something, a flicker of movement outside the window. A black SUV tailgated them, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a knife. Panic shot through her as she understood what was happening. "They're coming. They found us, she shouted, and Mark turned to her, his face filled with urgency. Hold on. The driver swerved into a narrow side street, tires screeching against the asphalt. Emily fought to steady herself, clutching the puppy against her chest. She could feel its heartbeat, palpitating just like hers, raw and terrified. Why don't you just tell me what this is all about? She demanded, frustration bubbling over. You brought me into this mess. I deserve to know. I'm trying to protect you. Mark yelled back, his emotions finally breaking through. You don't understand, it's not just me they want. It's people like us who stand in their way, and they will do anything to silence you if they think you know too much. The SUV behind them roared its engine, gaining on them even as the driver pushed the car harder. Emily glanced back, her heart sinking as she saw figures leaning out of the back windows, glinting metal in hand. Mark, they're armed, she shrieked. I know, he replied, his voice rising over the chaos. We can't let them catch us. You need to trust me, stay low, and keep quiet. Why would I trust you? She shot back. You are the one who dragged me into this. My life was normal until you normal. He interrupted, his voice filled with an urgency that silenced her. Look at what's happening now. This is not normal. You think it's just about the puppy? It's so much bigger than that. The weight of his words pressed hard against her. Every instinct told her to run, but here she was, trapped in a car with a man she barely knew, surrounded by enforcers who didn't give a damn about anyone, but their mission point, one of the pursuers fired a shot. Glass splintered dangerously close to her head, scattering shards like stars around them. Emily screamed, ducking down instinctively, her body shaking with fear. Get down, Mark shouted again, fear etched into every feature. In that intense moment, something snapped in Emily. She was done being sidelined in her own life. Igniting a spark of defiance, she wrapped her arms around the puppy and broke through the swirling fog of fear. Where are we going? She shouted, determination fueling her voice. Somewhere safe, Mark promised, but his eyes reflected doubt. It's all I can say now. The landscape began to change, dimming lights giving way to more open spaces. With a mixture of desperation and hope, Emily realized this was far from over. But as the tension escalated, she understood that whatever secret Mark held could change everything, a bomb waiting to explode in their lives. Just then, the car careened around a corner, slamming into a driveway marked with a rusty gate. Emily's heart raced. Hold on. As they screeched to a halt, a fresh wave of uncertainty flooded her thoughts. Could they actually find refuge here? Or would they stumble into danger once again? The night was far from over, and the fight was just starting. What lay beyond those gates? And could she really trust Mark after all? As the car came to a sudden stop, Emily felt the rush of adrenaline thumping in her ears, drowning out the silence that enveloped them. The driver cut the engine, and the eerie stillness pressed around them. Mark's eyes darted around, scanning the shadows as if they were alive. Get out, he instructed urgently, reaching for the door handle. Emily hesitated, her heart pounding against her ribcage. What if they find us here? She whispered, glancing back at the darkened street, the fear of the unknown tightening its grip around her. They will, if we don't move. His voice was sharp, filled with panic. With a firm grip on the puppy, she pushed the door open and stepped onto the gravel driveway, the crunching sound almost deafening in the stillness. Mark followed, his determined expression illuminating a flicker of her resolve. This was at whatever lay ahead. She could no longer be a passenger in her own life. Where are we? She asked, taking in the dim outline of a sprawling estate, its grandeur lost in the shadows. A friend's place, Mark said, scanning the area. They can help. Help with what? Emily snapped, frustration bubbling over again. You still haven't told me anything. You want to keep me safe just because I follow you blindly. Mark's face softened for a moment. I know, but I'm trying to protect you. I wish I could explain everything, but we don't have time. His eyes held hers, pleading for understanding. A gust of wind rustled through the trees, causing the branches to whisper. Emily shivered, not just from the cold, but from the looming sense of danger that hovered like a thick fog. In the distance, the sound of a revving motor shattered the stillness. "Listen," Mark said, urgency returning to his voice. "We have to move. Now." Before she could respond, he reached for her wrist, pulling her along as they darted towards the back of the house. Tremors of fear coursed through her as they slipped into the shadows, every instinct screaming at her to run in the opposite direction. "Is this really your friend's place?" she questioned, her mind ping-ponging between distrust and panic. "Yes," Mark insistently whispered, a hint of irritation creeping in. "Can you just trust me for a moment?" They rounded the edge of the house, and Emily's breath hitched at the sight of the large double doors at the back, lit faintly from within. Mark banged on the door, urgency in every thud. "Simon, open up," he yelled, glancing over his shoulder. "Do they even know we're here?" She gasped, pulse racing. "Just wait." He was relentless, pounding again as if each strike were a lifeline. Emily's heart thrummed louder, drowning out the creeping sound of the SUV approaching. She could feel the tension crackle in the air, amplifying her anxiety. Suddenly, the door creaked open, revealing an older man with weathered features and a wary look in his eyes. "What is going on?" he asked, stepping aside just enough for them to slip inside. "Get in quick," Mark urged, and they stumbled through the doorway, adrenaline pushing them forward. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The smell of old wood and something rich and bitter settled around her. Emily's gaze flickered nervously over the decor pictures of the family, ancient artifacts, and a table covered in papers and devices, all lending an air of secrecy. "Close it," Mark barked, and the man quickly latched the door, casting furtive glances outside. "Who are they?" he asked, urgency lacing his voice. "The people want to silence us," Mark replied. "They think I have what they need." "Damn it," Mark the man muttered, shaking his head as if grappling with memories that clawed at him. "This has gone too far." Emily's heart raced faster, dread pooling in her stomach. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice shaky but strong. "What is this secret?" Mark turned to her, his expression dark and solemn. "I promise. I'll explain everything. I can't let them take you." But the man interrupted, his face pale. "If they're looking for something, it's not going to just stop. You need to leave now." Before he could finish, the rattling sound of a vehicle parking outside shattered the fragile tension. Emily felt ice grip her heart. Were they too late? Mark's eyes widened in alarm. "We need an exit. Now." Just as panic surged, something crashed against the door, sending echoes of splintering through the house. Their time was running out. Emily's pulse quickened. How deep did this rabbit hole go? And could they escape before it swallowed them whole? Emily's breath caught in her throat, each echo of the crashing door sending tremors down her spine. Mark's grip tightened around her wrist, pulling her further into the dimly lit room. The man, who had introduced himself only as Tom, stood frozen, eyes flitting nervously to the door. "Where's the back exit?" Mark demanded, his voice a low hiss charged with urgency. Tom pointed towards a narrow hallway, fear etching deep lines on his brow. "Straight down, but stay quiet. They want to be gentle if they find you." Emily couldn't breathe. They were cornered, the danger creeping closer, tangible and suffocating. Mark's eyes bore into hers, a mix of resolve and desperation. "We're going to get through this, okay?" he whispered, but it felt like a fragile promise in the storm. Another loud crash reverberated through the house, causing the wooden door to buckle. The faint stutter of voices outside brought sickening clarity to their situation. Emily felt the puppy squirm in her arms, an innocent reminder of the chaos swirling around them. "Go, now," Mark urged, nudging her towards the hallway. They slipped into the narrow corridor, moving silently past framed photographs of a smiling family, a stark contrast to the fear that engulfed them. Emily's heart raced, each step echoing her uncertainty. What if they were too late? What if Emily? Mark's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "Focus. We need to." A sudden crash erupted behind them, the front door giving way under the force of the intruders. Tom's eyes widened in panic as he pushed Emily and Mark forward. "Run. I'll hold them off." He gasped, his voice strained. "No," Emily shouted instinctively, horrified at the thought of abandoning him. "Do it," Mark insisted, urgency snapping through his words. "We can't afford to waste time." Tom glanced one last time at them before bolting back towards the chaos, determination mixed with despair. Emily hesitated, torn between fear for Tom and the fight for their own lives. "Let us go," Mark urged again, pulling her along as they hurried down the hallway, the walls closing in on them as adrenaline coursed through her veins. They reached the end of the corridor, the sound of shouts and footsteps pounding behind them. At the end, a small door sat ajar, and beyond it lay shadows and uncertainty. Emily's heart raced as they stepped through. Outside, the air felt charged, thick with tension. They found themselves in a small, overgrown garden, an oasis of green lost to time. "This way," Mark said, directing her towards a dense thicket. But Emily froze, a sinking feeling in her gut. "Wait, what is out there?" she asked, a sharp dread crawling up her spine. "Just keep moving," Mark insisted, but the sound of shuffling footsteps from behind them sent a jolt of terror through her. Without a clear path, Emily felt trapped between fear and survival. Then, she heard a soft voice beckoning from the far end of the garden. "Over here. Quick!" Emily's body tensed, caught in a web of instinct and trust. Mark turned to her, confusion written across his face. "Who is that?" "I don't know," she began, but the urgency in the shouts behind them yanked her back to reality. "Emily, choose." Mark's voice rang with stark clarity. All she heard was chaos echoing behind them, a hungry void waiting to swallow them whole. As she glanced towards the shadowy figure, a rushing torrent of doubts flooded her mind. She was afraid to trust again, but if this was their only chance, "Come on," she yelled, adrenaline pushing her forward, the weight of her decision hanging heavy. But just then, a voice boomed from behind them, slicing through the garden's stillness. "You really thought you could escape?" The ground beneath her felt like it was crumbling away. The hunter was no longer outside. He was closing in, and she could feel the darkness clawing at the edges of her vision. Would they take this leap into the unknown, or would the shadows catch them first? Emily's heart pounded in her chest, a relentless drum echoing in the oppressive silence of the garden. She had only a moment. Behind her, the shadows of pursuers loomed ever closer. The figure at the garden's edge beckoned with urgency in their eyes. Could she trust this stranger? The alternative was unthinkable. "Emily," Mark's voice was barely above a whisper, a tight urgency lacing through it. "We can't plant ourselves here. We have to move." The shadows from the house spilled into the garden, like dark tendrils reaching for them. She could hear the gruff voices, their words blurred into a menacing murmur, a promise of violence if they were caught. "Are you coming or not?" Mark pressed, his grip tightening around her arm. There was determination in his eyes, but fear danced at the edges. He was grappling with the same question, trusting the unknown or facing the danger head-on. With a glance toward the thicket, Emily felt a sudden rush of adrenaline. "Let us go," she shouted, forcing her legs to move as she sprinted towards the shadowy figure. Mark followed closely, his footsteps matching her hurried pace. As they approached, the stranger revealed themselves a wiry man with a wild beard and eyes that seemed to flicker like flame. "Quickly, you must hide," he urged, pointing to a tangled mass of foliage. "They'll be upon us." Emily and Mark dove for cover, the foliage scratching at their arms as they squeezed into the dense underbrush. The scent of wet earth and leaves filled her nostrils, grounding her from the chaos of moments before. Breathless and crouched in their hiding place, Emily dared to peek through the leaves. She saw them, the men, faces shrouded in darkness, moving through the garden with predatory intent. "Split up," one commanded. "Find them. They can't have gone far." Fear gripped Emily by the throat. "What we do now?" she whispered to Mark, panic curling inside her. "Just stay quiet," he replied, his voice steadied by a calm resolve that confused her. "Let them pass. For what felt like an eternity, they huddled in silence, listening to the sound of footsteps crunching through the garden. Emily's thoughts whirled. Who were these men? Why were they after her? Then, a shout shattered the stillness. They went this way. Keep moving. The wild-eyed stranger in the thicket looked at them with a mix of dread and urgency. If they find you here, you won't survive it. You have to move while you can. But where? Emily's mind raced. She could feel the hunters closing in. The world outside this thicket was black with danger, but staying hidden only delayed the inevitable. Follow me, he said suddenly, his intensity igniting a spark of hope. I know another way out of here. Just then, screams erupted from the far end of the garden, piercing the tension. Emily's heart lurched. It sounded like Tom. The thought of leaving him behind twisted like a knife in her gut, but the need for survival was stronger. Emily? Mark's voice was low, laced with fear. We can't help him if we're dead. She turned to him, searching his face for reassurance. But how can I abandon him? Her voice trembled, raw with emotion. Tom knew what he was doing. We have to trust him, Mark insisted, determination hardening his features. The sounds of chaos grew louder. Emily faced a decision that twisted uncomfortably in her gut. To stay for Tom meant risking everything, but to leave could mean their only hope of escape. Now, the wild-eyed man urged, urgency crashing around them. They shared one last look, an unspoken promise between them before the moments stretched painfully. Emily nodded, resolve hardening her spirit. They broke from the thicket, moving silently as shadows themselves. The path unfurled before them, leading deeper into the unknown. But as they fled, the garden erupted in a horrifying cacophony, leaving Emily tangled between fear and the thumping pulse of the unknown, questioning what they would find ahead. And as they disappeared into the dark, the very air around them crackled with danger. Would they be able to escape? Or had they stumbled from one nightmare into another, one that awaited them just beyond the garden's edge? Emily plunged deeper into the thicket, her heart still racing as she fought the urge to look back. She could hear them, the men, murmuring their threats as they scoured the garden. The wild-eyed stranger moved ahead of her, glancing back occasionally, eyes wide with urgency. Mark followed closely, his presence a solid reassurance amid the chaotic uncertainty. When they broke into a small clearing, the stranger halted. We'll hide here for a moment, he said, breathless. They checked the thicket first. Emily scanned their surroundings. Low branches wrapped around them like a protective embrace, but she felt no comfort. How can you be so sure? She pressed, anxiety climbing again. The man wiped sweat from his brow, his expression carved with worry. Trust me, I've learned to know their patterns. They'll all look for you where they last saw you. But what if Tom? Emily started, but the man cut her off, shaking his head. We can't save him if we get caught. We need to get you away from here first. Mark placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. We need a plan, he urged, voice steady but tinged with fear. If we just run blindly, we might head straight into their path. Right, said the man, a flicker of admiration passing over his features. We'll head to the edge of the property. There's an old shed. We can regroup, reassess. Emily felt an odd sense of calm at their resolve, the urgency driving her forward. Let us do it, then. We can't afford to lose any more time. As they moved, the atmosphere thickened with dread. Emily's senses heightened. Each rustle of leaves or snap of a twig sent her heart into overdrive. She could almost feel the men's eyes pressed against the darkness, searching, aware that she was near. Just as they began to crawl through a dense cluster of bushes, the ground beneath Emily shifted. She stumbled and nearly fell, catching herself at the last second. Mark reached for her, his fingers brushing against hers, igniting a spark of warmth in this chilly nightmare. Before she could catch her breath, a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the distance, reverberating through the garden. She froze, a lump in her throat, as she exchanged wide-eyed glances with Mark and the stranger. They're getting closer, Mark hissed, inching backward, almost protective. The wild-eyed man cursed under his breath. We have to move. Now. They might check the shed. With a pounding heart, Emily pushed forward, and they pressed onward through the dense undergrowth. Each step felt like a gamble, a roll of the dice in a treacherous game where losing meant death. Suddenly, the ground opened up ahead, revealing the small shed, its door hanging on its hinges. The sight of it filled Emily with a fleeting sense of hope, a place to strategize, to breathe without the weight of chasing shadows. As they approached, she caught a glimpse of something shiny inside. It glinted in the meager light, a metallic flash, so out of place it sent chills down her spine. "What's that?" she mouthed quietly. "I don't know," Mark replied, his voice low, filled with trepidation. The stranger peered through the door, eyes narrowing. "We should not linger. Whatever that is, it could be a trap." Just as they were about to turn away, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it a distant sound, an anguished cry echoing from the far side of the garden. Emily's heart dropped. "That sounds like Tom." The urgency in her voice was evident, but Mark's face hardened. "We can't go back. It's too dangerous." The wild-eyed man nodded, but the glimmer of something inside the shed caught her attention again. She stepped closer, drawn by the metallic object. Without thinking, she whispered, "I have to see what that is," but as she pushed the door open, the shed creaked ominously, and a shocking truth unfolded before her. In the flickering light, she saw a collection of documents scattered across the floor, each bearing a name she recognized: hers, Tom S., Mark S., all tied to a looming entity she barely understood. Emily stopped. Mark cried, but it was too late. The moment hung heavy, a revelation on the brink of explosion, a force waiting to upend everything she thought she knew. What had she stumbled upon? The shed door was shut behind them, and outside, the echoing footfalls drew nearer. A voice rang out, clear against the rustle of leaves, sending another shock through Emily. "Don't let them escape. They're inside." As the walls of their temporary refuge closed in, she realized some secrets were darker than the night itself. Would she uncover the truth before it was too late? Or were they already ensnared in a net far more complex than mere survival? The door swung open, casting a narrow beam of light onto the scattered papers. Emily knelt instinctively, her breath hitching as she rummaged through the mess. Names and dates danced before her wide eyes like specters, each one a chilling reminder of a connection she couldn't fully grasp. "Emily, don't. This isn't the time." Mark's urgent whisper sliced through her panic, but the names had her transfixed. Lines connecting dots, histories intertwining, whispers of lives unraveling. "Look," she breathed, picking up a document marked with a bold red stamp. "Confidential." She could feel it pulsing in her hands, heavy with answers that begged to be uncovered. The wild-eyed stranger paced anxiously behind them. "This is dangerous. We need to leave now." But Emily hesitated. What if this can lead us to Tom? What if these documents hold information about him? Or about us? Mark interjected, a harsh edge creeping into his voice as he looked over her shoulder. "What if you get caught?" Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps grew louder from outside the shed, their rhythm a sinister drum roll of impending doom. Emily's heart was a wild thing thumping in her chest, drowning out the world around her. Sweat trickled down her brow. "Stay close and be quiet," the wild-eyed man urged, clenching his fists. They all instinctively shrank back into the shadows, the air charged with a suffocating tension as the sounds of pursuit amplified. "Split up," a deep voice commanded from beyond the shed. Emily's breath caught at the timbre of it. It was one of the men from before. "We can't let them escape. Check every corner." A shadow passed the narrow window, dark and imposing, sending shivers skimming down her spine. "We need to hide these," Mark said, pointing to the documents, fear flickering in his eyes. "If they find out what we've seen, we're dead." Emily swallowed hard. His words were a cruel reminder of their reality. But her gaze remained locked on the paper in her grasp, the one with her name. "I can't just leave it here. It has the answers." "Listen to me," the stranger hissed, urgency creeping into his voice. "You could be putting all of us in danger." Suddenly, the shed's door jerked, rattling on its hinges. The men outside were growing impatient. Find them. They can't have gone far. Emily felt a flash of desperation. I want to let them take this away. Just give me a second. With one bold motion, she shoved the document deep into her pocket and stood, adrenaline energizing her limbs. Now what? Mark asked, mouth set in a grim line as he glanced at the door. A plan was forming in her mind, but fear gnawed at the edges. We have to make a break for it. If we could just get to the tree line, she whispered, glancing at the fragile doorway. The wind was picking up outside, blowing the leaves into a frantic dance, as if nature itself were warning her. Suddenly, a loud crash jolted through the air. Someone kicked the door from the outside. Metal twisted as splintering wood screamed against the impact, and Emily's heart plummeted. Now, the wild-eyed man shouted, and with that, they burst from the shed, the world beyond exploding into chaos. Adrenaline surged as they sprinted into the open air, the coolness slicing against their flushed skin. Footsteps thundered behind them, fierce and relentless, like wolves in pursuit of prey. Towards a tree line, Mark urged, his voice cutting through the noise. They scattered, branches clawing at their arms as they weaved through the underbrush, racing against time itself. But as they reached the edge of the forest, Emily's mind raced faster than her body could carry her. What had she just uncovered? And more importantly, what would it mean for Tom, for them all, if they were caught? Then, a shattering realization struck her. What if Tom wasn't the only one in danger? Looking over her shoulder, she felt the shadows creeping closer, the weight of secrets pressing down. Emily, Mark shouted, pulling her back into the moment, into the pulse of survival. Just ahead, a fleeting shadow darted between the trees. Did you see that? Emily gasped, sensing a presence lurking in the woods. The thought ate at her. Who else might be entangled in this twisted web? I don't know if we can trust anyone. Mark's voice broke through, panic stark against the backdrop of night. And as they plunged deeper into the trees, one question hung heavy in the air. Would they emerge together, or would the darkness claim them one by one? Emily's legs ached as they raced through the dense underbrush, branches scratching at her arms like frantic hands reaching out for them. The chaos of pursuit echoed in her ears, but the weight of the documents hidden in her pocket grounded her, reminding her of the stakes. Mark moved beside her, his gaze darting as if trying to catch glimpses of the pursuers, but the shadows concealed everything. Keep going, he urged, breathless but focused. Every snap of a branch sent tremors of panic through Emily. What if they find us? She gasped, desperation clawing within her. They won, Mark promised with fierce determination. Just don't stop. But as they pushed deeper into the woods, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Had they made a mistake running? Could they trust the wild-eyed stranger still following close behind? Which way? Mark called, glancing around in the dim light. Over there. Emily pointed to a dense thicket, realizing they needed to find shelter once more. They pushed through, the foliage rustling around them like a frantic whisper. They stumbled into a small clearing, the moonlight spilling into the space. Breathing heavily, they crouched down, hiding in the shadows. Emily clutched the puppy even tighter, wishing she could assure it that everything would turn out okay. The wild-eyed man, whose name she still hadn't learned, moved closer, his eyes wide with urgency. We can't stay here long, he cautioned, scanning the trees. They'll be searching everywhere. Emily felt the weight of her decision press upon her. Should she reveal the document? The burning truth she held could connect them all, but it also felt like a ticking time bomb. What do we do now? She whispered, glancing at Mark. We move toward the river, he said, determination hardening his face. That'll throw them off her trail. Just as they made a break for it, the sound of heavy footsteps approached. They're coming, the stranger said, his voice low but urgent. Run, Mark shouted. They tore into the darkness, adrenaline pushing them forward. Emily's heart thundered in her chest, but she focused on the path laid before them. The underbrush was thick, each step a gamble against an abyss of uncertainty. Moments felt like hours as they fled, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. But as they approached the riverbank, Emily skidded to a halt. "What if we can't cross?" she said, panic rising again. Mark's eyes flared with determination. "We have to try. Follow my lead." They reached the water's edge, the icy currents swirling before them. Emily glanced back, dread pooling in her chest as she realized just how close their pursuers were. "They'll find us." In that instant, she locked eyes with Mark, and it felt like a tether binding them together. "Trust me," he urged. "I won't let anything happen to you." With a fierce nod, they plunged into the frigid water, gasping at the shock of the cold. The currents pulled at them, threatening to drag them under. Emily fought against it, keeping her grip tight on the puppy and focused on Mark's silhouette ahead. "What if they make it across?" she called out, struggling to keep her voice steady against the roaring water. "Then we fight," Mark shouted back, his voice ringing with defiance. Against the rush of the river, Emily felt a surge of hope amidst their frantic escape. They emerged on the opposite bank, gasping for breath, the water cascading off them. Glancing back, she saw shadows skirting the water's edge. "They're close. Come on." Mark grasped her hand, pulling her away from the riverbank, urgency igniting their steps. As they plunged into the dense woods once more, Emily felt alive with purpose. The documents thrumming against her leg felt like a key to a lock, a step her life had taken into a dangerous but necessary unknown. They raced through the trees, adrenaline surging through every nerve. The wild-eyed stranger, seemingly relentless in his caution, called out, "We have to find shelter, somewhere safe to regroup." "Wait." Emily stopped him, the weight of suffocating emotions caught in her chest. "Before we go any further, I need to know who you are and why you're helping us." Mark turned, adding his weight of curiosity. "Yeah, we're putting our lives in your hands here." The man looked at them, hesitation clouding his expression. Taking a breath, he finally spoke. "My name is Victor. I used to be part of the organization chasing you. They'll stop at nothing to take you down, Mark, because you know too much." "What do you mean?" Emily pressed, her heart racing at the implications. Victor shrugged his shoulders, a flicker of regret passing through his eyes. "I left before it became too dangerous. But now it's come back to haunt me, and it could endanger both of you." "What did you do?" Mark demanded, a mix of anger and fear radiating from him. "I had knowledge about illegal dealings," Victor admitted. "Hidden documents, connections to people who wanted power at any cost. They're after anything that could expose their operations. Your names are on the documents now. Emily, you're embroiled in this just as much as Mark is." Emily's heart plunged. Realization crashed over her. Those documents were a thread intertwining their fates. "What about Tom?" she managed to ask, fear creeping in again. "I don't know," Victor replied, pain flickering behind his wild eyes. "But if they took him, we're probably running out of time to save him." Determination settled in Emily's chest. It ignited a burning resolve. "We can't leave him. We have to go back." Mark's expression hardened. "We can't risk it. We're barely holding on as it is." "Tom would do the same for us," she responded fiercely. "We owe him that much." Victor nodded, a hint of admiration flickering in his gaze. "I'll help you find him, but we need a plan. We can't rush out blindly." With newfound clarity, they began plotting a course, hearts bolstered by shared courage. Would they find Tom before it was too late? The shadows were closing in, but within that darkness, a fierce light flickered, one that promised they would confront their fears, face their pasts, and uncover the truth together. And together, they would fight. Before they ventured back into the chaos, Emily took a deep breath, feeling the puppy's warmth against her. She couldn't let the darkness swallow them yet. They would rise beyond it all, standing united against whatever storm awaited. If you're as invested in this story as I am, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Also, flood the comments section with your thoughts and predictions about this wild conclusion. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this thrilling ride. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support means everything.